It has been nearly 5 years since I made my original video about Ringo Starr Dating Simulator (the Beatles), and it is easily my most commented question on whatever I post. Ringo when? I could make a community post like, hey, I'm getting married and also I somehow got pregnant and my EP Bugs, Tubs, Candy, and Hugs just went triple platinum. And someone in the comments would go, okay, but when is the Ringo game coming out? So now I'm happy to announce that I'm finally working on the game again, and even cooler, I am developing it for the Game Boy Color using a program called GB Studio. I already wrote most of the script for the game around a year ago, so I was able to jump straight into the drawing, programming, and music making side of the game development. And in this video, I'm going to go over my first 10 days of progress. So let's jump straight into it with day 1. Day 1 was all about drawing our first Beatle to put in the game, and obviously I started with Ringo. I drew these pictures of the Beatles like almost a year ago, and I even made a digital version for Ringo, so I plopped that into Sprite and made a pixel art version. And I have to say, it turned out really nice. The pixely look just fits the dating simulator genre really well in my opinion. The Game Boy Color, which we are developing for, can only display up to 4 colors per 8x8 square, and only 3 colors if it's a sprite because one color is eaten up by a transparency effect. So the method I decided to go with was to make Ringo the background so I could use 4 colors, and then make his face a 32x32 sprite so I can easily change it to different expressions. I programmed a little opening dialogue using a script I wrote a year ago that's about 75% done, and that marks the end of my progress on day 1. Day 2 was a day of player designing and menu making. I started with making 2 variants of the player, a boy version and a girl version. I thought about doing a non-binary version, but you can only have multiple choices of a maximum of 2 in the engine I'm using, so if I think of another way of selecting a player, I'll add a non-binary option, but for now, this is all I got. Anyway, I've got each gender looking forward, to the side, back, and walking in all of those directions. I did this because I want my game to feature a lot of top-down sections where you actually walk around the map instead of just looking at text the whole game. I think it'll make the game a lot more fun, even if it's not necessarily standard for this genre. I then went into making a main menu with a checkered background, a little Ringo in the corner, and some text that you will notice spells Beatles the bug way and not the band way. This is to avoid copyright. I made a little pointer to choose between start and extras, but only start does anything for now, and it takes you to a screen to choose your gender. I made this screen by literally just taking my 16x16 player sprites and doubling their size into a 32x32, so they actually take up a decent amount of space on the screen. I also tried to make a name creator screen, and it looked really cute, but I couldn't really get it to work, so I cut it for now. At some point, I should also probably add a file select so up to 3 people can have some dating drama going on at the same time, but for now, this works. Day 3 was all about making the player's house. I actually already had an idea in my head of how I wanted the house layout to look as far back as a year ago, and I stayed pretty faithful to that original imagining. You got a bedroom in the top right, little kitchen top left, a living room that also has the exit in the bottom left, and a bathroom in the bottom right. Once I put it into the game, I decided on making an autumn-inspired palette, which just seemed very homely and admittedly kind of Undertale-y. And I mixed it with this default blue-greenish palette, which despite blue being a contrasting color of orange, I think these colors mix really nicely. I especially like the way the light floods in through the kitchen window. I made you able to interact with a ton of stuff in the house with flavor text in every single room like this is a freaking Silent Hill game. And the way I did this was by literally adding actors that just have invisible sprites that display text when you interact with them. I made it so you can take a shower, and yes, it affects the game if you don't do this, and I made it so you can switch your player gender in the mirror at any time, which would honestly be a very cool feature in real life too, and should be patched soon. You can call John, which doesn't do anything because he's literally outside your house right now, and you can choose to watch TV, but I haven't actually programmed that yet, and I plan on making it first thing tomorrow. As promised, day 4 started with making the TV work. I started with drawing out the actual TV, which again has a checkered background, which is sort of a running theme in this game. But I have noticed my mistake that the player clearly states that their TV has a built-in VHS player, but there is no VHS player in sight on this TV. I'll fix it later. Anyway, I wanted to make a news channel and make the anchor George Martin, because he just seems very formal. So I drew him on paper. My first version looked kind of scary, but I think I nailed him with take 2. And I also decided to draw Brian Epstein while I was at it, who I plan on being the teacher in the game. Not to be confused with another teacher with a strikingly similar last name. Anyway, I drew the pixel art version of George Martin, threw him on the TV, made his mouth move, and wrote this whole news spiel, complete with little moving images that go into this little square. And I wrote a little news theme song that goes dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. For now, he talks in little 8-bit blips, just like the player, but eventually I want to do my impression of all the characters going like wah 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 wah, and have them talk like those "What if the Beatles were in an 8-bit video game" videos. But apparently making custom Game Boy sound effects is hard, so we will see. Anyway, George talks about blue meanies terrorizing the town at night and a new 8 p.m. curfew that has been set because of this. I called the blue meanies blue baddies though, again, just like the title, to avoid copyright. And with that, the house is pretty much done. But I should mention the other cool thing I added. You can interact with the fridge and choose to grab an energy drink, and I designed a little inventory that once you grab the drink, boom, there it is, spinning around all cutely. Anyway, that's pretty much all I did today. Day 5, I started making the area outside of your house. This was my first time making a pixel art house, I think ever, and it turned out a lot better than I expected. I did have this picture on the side to help me, but I think my design still stands out as its own. I made these cozy little cliffs and trees to surround you, and my sister happened to be over while I was drawing this, and she was like, oh, you should add shadows from the house, and that's what I did. And I went way too far with it, and I added shadows coming from every single tree as well, and it was very time consuming, but it was worth it, because after I plopped this into the game and colored it all orange and blue, it looked really pretty. I'm surprised it even fits, because if you didn't know, a single screen in a Game Boy game can only have a maximum of 192 unique 8x8 tiles, which basically means how many little squares can have different designs from each other. That's the reason, for example, that every little 8x8 of grass or flowers are literally exactly the same. Anyway, I decided the orange of this room was more fitting for sunset rather than dawn, so like a crazy man, I made a whole new version of the map with shadows going in the opposite direction and colored it blue for the morning time. Then I took that original shadowless version and used it to make a nighttime version of the map, which really you shouldn't be out at night because, you know, 8 p.m. curfew, remember? But the story calls for getting in a little trouble, so you will see that in the future. Anyway, that's all I really did today because doing all those shadows ate up a lot of time. On day 6, I got a little distracted and made Finn, Jake, and BMO as pixel art characters. The previous night, I really struggled to sleep because I started imagining up this whole top-down Zelda-like Adventure Time game, also for the Game Boy. I thought how fun it would be to explore the land of Ooo, completing quests, delving deep into dungeons, and fighting bosses. For a story, I was thinking maybe Peppermint Butler could somehow bring back all the vampires from the Stakes miniseries, and you go around fighting them after completing their dungeons. I literally spent hours fleshing this game idea out in my brain instead of sleeping, and honestly, once I'm done with this Beatles game, I will probably make this Adventure Time one, even if it does sound like a much bigger project. Anyway, I also made the bedroom of the treehouse, which looks just okay, but I think needs a second attempt. But the outside of the treehouse I made, I think looks really nice. And I feel like I really cleverly used my 4 colors, using 2 for green and 2 for brown, including the color that's supposed to be black, as brown. Although I am realizing that I forgot the treasure room on the front of the treehouse, but now's probably not the time because I should really get back to the game I'm actually working on right now. So yeah, today I added this one singular room, a crossroad. That's literally all I did because Adventure Time ate up so much of my game making time today. I did make 3 variants again for dawn, sunset, and night, but yeah, that's all I got. Today I decided to make a night variant of the player house. The plan is that on the first night you get woken up by a scream and have to make the choice of whether to go investigate or not investigate, with the dilemma being that it's past curfew. I added rain outside the windows with the tile replace function, and I also added moonlight to flood through said windows. I also added a little trigger function at this choke point that makes you darker when you are in the shadows and lighter when you are in the moonlight. I even made some lightning that flashes every 12 seconds, which eventually I want to figure out how to make that a random number. Honestly, this room looks so cool that I feel like I should make a little puzzle that forces you to linger in here for a little longer. Maybe something where you have to like find a flashlight and some batteries or something. For now, that's all I did for today. On day 8, I added your best friend in the game, John Lennon. Back in 2021, I designed this really stupid looking white blob for John Lennon, and because I struggled so much to make a drawing of John that didn't look completely stupid, I decided to stick with that design. Although, I can't say he translated to pixel art quite as well as Ringo did, and I will probably redraw him at some point. Anyway, I also designed a 16x16 top-down version of him to actually walk around in the real world, and just like the player, he has an idle forward, backward, and side state, as well as animations of him walking in each of those directions. I made a trigger so that when you walk outside, he emotes this little exclamation point, and he says this whole spiel about how you're gonna be late for school and junk. And if you didn't figure out that you can shower in the intro, John notices, and you can go back and fix your mistake if you want. Or not, you can also just yell at him. Anyway, I made John follow you around as you walk to school, but I had to slow him down and add a little wait time before he starts following you, because he was just way too good at being right up your ass. I also disabled his collisions towards you because he was acting like a straight up football player on defense and block your path from you moving forward, and he would even soft lock you by cornering you into walls, which a lot of people would probably enjoy if I didn't draw John the way that I did. I also learned on this day that to avoid copyright, I need to do more than just use the Beatles' first names. I have to actually give them new names. I learned this because my girlfriend was telling me about some One Direction fanfiction that got published and had to have all the names changed. So I'm thinking Ringo, Pingo, John, Jack, Paul, Polly, and George, Harry. I might have to end up changing the title too, in which case I'll probably call it Bottles Dating Simulator. Anyway, that's all I got done for day 8. Today I added the dog that relentlessly tries to fight you and block your path to school. This dog was in the original game concept of my Ringo exclusive dating simulator in 2021, and I redrew him in the pixel art style. His name is Rupert, although his name is never mentioned. He wants to fight you so bad that almost every single dialogue choice leads to him fighting you in an Earthbound style fight, which is really just more dialogue options. But it is possible to not fight him. He just asks you to promise him to fight him after school instead, and then he just kind of flies off the screen. I was going to add a walking animation, but honestly, him just kind of floating off is really funny to me, so I think I will keep it, at least for now. If you do fight him, you notice right away that Rupert is very weak and could die from even the lightest of swoops. So you can either let him bite you, which doesn't really hurt, or you can punch him, which straight up kills him and makes you lose friendship points with John and makes it so you can't use the shop that he secretly runs later in the game. Also, if you kill Rupert, he turns into this little grave, and yes, it stays there for the rest of the game. As for Rupert's fight music, which has been playing in the background this whole time, it's a recreation of the fight music I originally made for the Beatles dating sim like a year ago, which is featured on my album Songs of Unfinished Video Games. It's called Dogfight with an exclamation point. Anyway, that's all I did for day 9. On day 10, I designed the school, which I really had to shrink down from my original vision, because apparently any screen taller than 1 breaks the Game Boy's parallax effect, which yeah, let's talk about that. Behind the squish school are some mountains and the blue mini castle in the distance, which moves to the side at a slower pace in the foreground, to create this really cool illusion of depth. My plan for the game is for it to end with you storming the blue mini castle to save the Beatles, so this is a cool little sneak peek of what you will be seeing much later in the game. I even added a quarter operated binoculars pole thingy, but I realized that you kind of need a quarter to operate it, so I decided to hide a quarter in your beanbag at the start of the game. If you look through, you can see the castle up close and even see a blue meanie staring right back at you with his own binoculars. And to top it off, you even get to keep your quarter with the whole string method. So yeah, that quarter should be useful if you didn't kill Rupert and want to use the shop. That's all I've got for today, and now that it's day 10, I plan on taking a break to work on a different project that I have to keep a secret for now, but I will come back with another 10 days of progress very soon. And now finally, here's some footage of the game being played on an actual Game Boy. If you want to try this game out for yourself, I'm letting my Patreons play it, so if you didn't know about my Patreon, now you do. I'll also put patrons in the credits of the game with a little fruit drawing of you too if you join the second tier. If you don't want to subscribe to my Patreon, don't worry, someone who does will probably leak the download anyway. But also, once I am finished with the game, I plan on selling it for dirt cheap on Steam, but I will put it on sale like all the time. I also want to make a physical release of the game to run on an actual Game Boy, complete with a box, a manual, and a little sticker on the cartridge. I bought a little thing that lets me load ROMs onto cartridges, and I also bought a single rewritable cartridge to test on. Because making the physical release will have production costs, that version will be sold much closer to the price of an actual video game, something like $30 probably, which I guess isn't that close to the price of standard video games these days. Anyway, that's all I've got for today's video. Here are my patrons, thank you to them, and if you have any cool ideas for this game, be sure to leave them below in the comment section. Also, like and subscribe if you want to see part 2 show up on your homepage. Okay, love you, bye.